This morning, Donald made his way to Capitol Hill for what was supposed to be a show of strength. Yeah, that's always a trick and a half for him. But of course, it ended up being a showcase in chaos. His goal, allegedly, was to bully House Republicans into supporting his ridiculously named Big Beautiful Billionaire tax break. What actually happened instead was more dysfunction, more confusion, all brought to you, of course, by Donald. Before heading into a closed door meeting with GOP lawmakers, Donald stopped to bark at reporters in what can only be described as a desperate attempt to reassert control, or at least the appearance of it. The whole exchange, however, just underscored how out of control this all really is.
What are you planning to tell the fiscal hawks who want to delay?
I'm a fiscal hawk.
Don't think this cuts enough spending.
I'm a bigger fiscal hawk. There's nobody like me.
Ms. Massey said that adds more deficit than Biden did, and this bill kind of...
Because we have to fix the
Do
country.
you think that Thomas Massey is correct in saying that this is adding Biden level?
No, I don't think Thomas Massey understands government. I think he's a grandstander, frankly. He'll probably vote. We don't even talk to him much. I think he should be voted out of office. And I just don't think he understands government. If you ask him a couple of questions, he never gives you an answer. He just says, I don't know. He thinks he's going to get publicity. And you have that. You have that. They've got some too. Go ahead.
Thomas Massey doesn't understand government. Thomas Massey is a grandstander. Are we kidding ourselves here? Says the greatest grandstander in the history of American politics, and a man who's never read the Constitution and doesn't understand what our agencies are supposed to be doing. That plus, of course, the idea that Donald is a fiscal hawk. I mean, that may be true in a certain sense. He certainly is for us. He'd be more than happy to keep the American people impoverished and struggling economically while he and his billionaire friends make money hand over fist. None of this was about negotiating. It was a tantrum. He should have just strong armed people in his own party because they are aware of just how toxic this bill is for them and their constituents. Because the bill's biggest critics, well, they're the fiscal hawks who say it doesn't cut enough. So, the even more cruel wing of the party. And that's where we are right now with these people. They're arguing over who can gut Medicaid more to make things worse for more people. And of course, because this is the Republican Party, to make things worse for those who are already struggling and need some extra help. Donald cannot stand the idea of being out extremed by his own potential allies. And when a reporter asked if the holdout should expect to be primaried, Donald shrugged and said, possibly, which is a not so subtle threat from a guy who still thinks that people care what he has to say. If you look at his recent track record, however, his threats are starting to feel a little hollow. People are beginning to understand that he's not going to be able to back them up anymore. In 2024, MAGA candidates did not fare very well in Republican primary elections around the country. For example, Donald went all in on Trent Skaggs in Utah, trying to oust the somewhat more moderate John Curtis. The result? Curtis obliterated Skaggs in a landslide. I don't know if you remember Dave Williams in Colorado, but he's the guy who bragged about texting with Donald, and he lost by over 30 points. The people Donald backed in 2022, the most extreme members of the Republican Party, flopped in their primaries. So is it really a threat coming from Donald Trump if he says he's maybe thinking of primarying you? No, because Donald, I hate to break this to you. You're not scary anymore. Or at least to people who used to be scared of you. You're not the kingmaker you believe yourself to be. In fact, most of what you continue to believe is based on your own delusions. Now, Donald can never pass up a spotlight. He puffed up his chest and basically does what he always does when it comes to numbers. He made them up out of thin air. Take a look at this.
I will win a lot of elections. The economy is good. I just had my highest poll numbers ever. and we had a big trip to the Middle East. We took in $5.1 trillion. We brought it back to our country. 180 Boeing aircraft are being built now because of that trip, and they're spending 5.1 trillion. Probably it's going to be 7 trillion by the time we sell.
I just want to take a second to point out the two grotesque sycophants standing to either side of Donald, just nodding, as if anything he's saying is based in reality. Nothing the man said made any sense. When he returned from the Middle East, he told the press corps that he'd acquired over $2 trillion in great deals, and now he's saying $5.1 trillion. The Washington Post ran the numbers and found that the $2 trillion figure was also completely made up. Many of the agreements that the Trump regime has taken credit for from this recent trip were actually engaged in under the Biden administration. So again, he was lying about the $2 trillion deal. Now it's $5 to $7 trillion. That number, I promise you, will continue to grow if he continues to be asked about how much he brought into the United States from that trip. As journalist Paul Waldman pointed out, the entire U.S. GDP was about $30 trillion last year. So Donald is claiming that he personally negotiated over 15% of our entire economy. Sure. Although, let's be real, the only thing he really cared about was the fact that he got a $400 million gift in the form of a really grotesquely ugly plane. In case you weren't convinced that Donald is completely out of his mind, and I'm not entirely sure why we need more evidence at this point, but hey, we will always have it. When a reporter brought up SALT, that's the state and local tax deduction cap, and a major sticking point in the spending bill for the budget bill for some Republicans, Donald derailed this so fast, it was as if he forgot where he was. Check it out.
These are all very blue states that I don't really believe we had honest elections. I don't actually believe. I think I would have won California. I would have won New York. I even think I would have won Illinois.
Wow. Okay. This is insane. Then he's asked about SALT, and then he spirals out and starts talking about election fraud. I mean, for Christ's sakes, man, join us in 2025. Wouldn't that be nice? I mean, it wouldn't be great for us, but it would probably be better for you. So let's just throw out some numbers that are actually accurate. In New York, Kamala Harris got 55.9% of the votes, which quite frankly is not a great showing for a Democrat, but that was compared to the 43.3% Donald got. That, in the context of our politics, is almost a landslide. In California, Harris pummeled him, getting 58.5% of the vote compared to his measly 38.3%. As for Illinois, that other incredibly blue state Donald's convinced he would have won under different circumstances, Harris got 54.4% of the vote to his rather pathetic 43.5%. He lost by millions of votes in all three of these states and is completely detached from reality to think that any of these states would ever be within his grasp. He had no path to victory in New York, California, or Illinois, and yet he's still whining about it. Then again, you cannot have grand delusions to the extent that he does without the power of cognitive decline behind them, which Donald had in spades in this morning's presser. Because then came the moment where the cracks in his psyche became impossible to ignore. Here, a reporter asked him about the bill he was there to discuss, and he had literally no idea what the reporter was talking about.
You want the negotiations to be over now and
Which negotiation?
over this bill?
Oh yeah, well it's going to be. We're going to be putting it in soon, and I think we're going to have great support. We don't want to benefit Democrat governors, although I would do that if it made it better, but they don't know what they're doing. But we have governors that are from the Democrat party, let's say New York, Illinois, big ones, and let's say Gavin Newsom, who's done a horrible job in California.
I know it's not that big a deal, but it continues to amaze me that there are actual adult human beings in this country who can look at that and not be just ashamed. Giving other people just ridiculous, immature nicknames, pretending that he knows what's going on. Ooh, negotiations? What negotiations? Well, that's literally why you're there, for negotiations. The one literally you were here discussing just moments before this question was asked. And is it me or does Mike John I can't tell. You make your own decision. Is Mike Johnson trying not to laugh, or is he wishing that the earth would swallow him whole? I think it's, 50-50, could go either way. Then, as a journalist was trying to ask about the House vote, Dahl says, "Well, I have no idea really. You're gonna have to help me out with this one."
Are Republicans still grandstanding in your view?
Oh, yeah, sure. You have a couple that will grandstand, but I think even the grandstanders should. Look, the alternative is a 68% tax increase. And you can blame the Democrats for that and one or two grandstanders. We only have one or two, but we have tremendous support. But you'll have a 68% tax increase, or you'll get a massive tax decrease.
Okay, so you're gonna get an increase, you're gonna get an increase. Wow, this doesn't make any fucking sense. But then again, when does he ever? This is unsurprising considering fewer than 24 hours before this, I hate to break it to you, but Donald was losing a fight with a box.
So, you want to help us out? You're the one that made it.
Wow. I mean, listen, who among us has not had problems opening a box like that? Yeah, I think most of us are adept, perhaps. I have to say, I appreciate that the aide was not willing to go along by pretending that it was a struggle somehow to open this box and just made it so much worse for Donald, which is something I can support always. Of course, Donald never misses an opportunity to blame his predecessor or anybody else who's available to be blamed for every single problem that exists in our country, most of which at this point are directly tied to things Donald Trump has done. This time, he accused Biden of using an autopen. I have to be honest with you, I've never used an autopen. I've never seen one. Apparently, they're multi-talented because Biden's autopen was capable of secretly opening the border. Watch this.
And now you found out and find out what happened, because Biden, look, it's a very sad thing what happened, but we're going to start looking into this whole thing with who signed this legislation. Who signed legislation opening our border? I don't think he knew. I said there's nobody that didn't want an open border. Nobody. And now I find out that it wasn't him. He auto-penned it. Who was operating the auto-pen? This is a very serious thing. We had a president that didn't sign anything. He auto-penned almost everything. He opened the borders of the United States of America. And I kept saying, who would do such a thing?
Nobody. Nobody wants open borders. Nobody would sign such a thing. And quite honestly, I continue to be much more concerned about the absolutely horrific career criminal we let in from New York City. So sure, go ahead, blame President Biden for all of the immigration troubles in this country. But let's be real here. No Democrat has ever said, yeah, let's have open borders. Our immigration situation is getting worse. Yes, it's always been something that we have failed at in a bipartisan way. But the Trump regime is currently responsible for all of the immigration troubles we're having. And Donald is sitting there accusing Biden of using an auto pen as a way as an excuse to void Biden's pardons and undercut anything else he did during his extremely consequential, and I mean in good ways consequential, 4 years in office between 2021 and 2025. Now, these comments came after Donald's sickening comments about the fact that President Biden just announced he has an aggressive form of prostate cancer. So where in these comments, he also continues to question Biden's cognitive wellness, which, by the way, is just unspeakably hypocritical coming from that guy. He also continued to promote the conspiracy theory that Biden kept his diagnosis a secret while he was in office and revealed himself to be, well, I mean, he does this every time he opens his mouth, but revealed himself in this case to be completely ignorant about the subject matter at hand. Watch this.
I'm surprised that it wasn't, the public wasn't notified a long time ago, because to get to stage 9, that's a long time. I just had my physical. You saw that. You saw the results of that particular test. I think that test is standard to pretty much anybody getting a physical, good physical. We had the doctors at the White House and over at Walter Reed, which is a fantastic hospital, do it. I did a very complete physical, including cognitive test. I'm proud to announce I aced it.
All right. I continue to be horrified that moron is bragging about the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, which you're supposed to pass with flying colors. It is a test for signs of oncoming dementia. You literally have to identify pictures of a camel, for example, and remember 5 words. It's supposed to be easy because you're supposed to get every single question. You were supposed to ace it in Donald's terminology. So clearly he conflated the stages of cancer. The worst cancer is stage 4, with the Gleason score, which, as I understand it, is to identify the extent to which the form of cancer you have is aggressive. So the more aggressive the cancer is, the higher your Gleason score. So again, 4 is the highest stage of cancer, and I believe Biden's Gleason score is a 9, which means that the cancer is aggressive. Now, listen. Presidents throughout history have kept things from the American people for various reasons. For all we know, Biden just found out. I mean, I don't know enough about his diagnosis to know when he may or may not have known. And quite frankly, I do not care. I don't care. It's irrelevant. We have enough going on right now to be looking back on whether or not Biden knew, and if he did know, if he should have stepped down. Who cares anymore? Maybe that's why he decided to hand it over to Kamala Harris. I don't know. Tell me how it's relevant in this moment. Also, why would anybody think it's okay for anybody to be punching down on a man who spent 50 years serving his country, whether you like the way he did it or not, whatever, 50 years of his life serving this country under sometimes unspeakably tragic conditions? Punching down on him when he's not in office anymore. He has nothing to do with the horrors currently unfolding in the United States of America. Simply what, Donald? To make yourself look like a tough guy? And forgive me, but nobody in this country knows the truth about Donald Trump's physical and mental health, because he has been lying to us about both of those things since day one with a lot of help. So this circus continues. Today, Donald was supposed to show up at the House to flex his strength, right? Trying to rally his party. What we saw instead was a flailing old man who's slipping further and further out of touch with reality, who, as it turns out, in the end, didn't even seem to know exactly why he was there and kept going off on tangents that should remind anybody who's paying attention just how dangerous it is to have that person anywhere near the levers of power. Please take a second and like and share this video. Be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please follow us and give the show a 5-star rating because it really does help other people find our content. Thanks.